welcome to another edition of the Throwing Bagels Podcast. Kevin Mooney here with you alongside Chris Douglas. Hey, Chris.
Kevin, what's up?
All is well, Chris. How about you?
Excellent. Yeah,
Excellent.
sweating a little bit, a little warm up here in Northeast,
That's right. We record on Mondays. Monday was hot up here in the central New York area. Jason Hama with us as well. Hey, Jason.
Hello there. How are you?
Hey, I am well. Was it just as hot down there?
Oh, you guys don't know what heat is, man. It's even hotter down here. It's even hotter down here.
That heat index, though, man. 100 today, I think.
Oh, man.
We record this.
It was like 10 o'clock at night the other night. It was 99 heat index in Newark still.
Oh.
I think our next guest can also vouch for the heat. And so it's our pleasure to welcome in yet another fantastic SUNY Oswego related guest. He is a producer for ESPN Event Productions, fellow SUNY Oswego grad, the one and only Matt Bartley. Hey, Matt.
Boys, how we doing? I appreciate it. I've watched a couple episodes and I saw some of the, TOP NYO reunions from SUNY Oswego. I'm like, man, I got to be a part of this thing. So I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you having on.
I saw I think SUNY Oswego, either the TOP or the NYO account had posted the golden pitcher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's still going back and forth, Mag, way back since it first came around, right? When we were in school or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it started with softball and then it went to basketball and TOP reigned hoops, and softball I think was kind of back and forth, but I think we owned the hoops for a while. But I know it's funny. I see some of the old posts, and I actually, for all you old SUNY Oswego alums, I can't grab it because it's too far away. But you remember the Woodshed Tavern down on 3rd Street by the lake?
Yes.
It's now something else.
The liquor store.
Yeah.
No, it's a bar. No. Not the Woodshed. I'm sorry. Northport down by the lake.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And there was a big wooden painted sign that I tore off the wall like before I moved to Connecticut. It's now some other bar, but it's funny to have some of those old things. But yeah, it's funny. We were terrorists when we were younger.
But you grew up in Oswego, right?
Yeah, I moved I grew up in central New York. I grew up in Tully, New York. Which is just Syracuse.
Yeah.
So lived there till I was in 6th grade. My father was a elementary principal and then took a principal job. He was my elementary school principal. And then he took a job at Minetto Elementary in Oswego. We moved up there in 7th grade. And my mom since passed away a couple years ago, but my dad still in a house near Brightbeck, gonna be 75 in September. So we're up there quite a few times, going up for Harbor Fest.
Oh, nice.
We live like literally, my dad lives now right across from Brightbeck Park. So my brother and I go out at 6:30 in the morning and put out a blanket because everyone's doing it, putting out blankets for the fireworks. So we get a pretty sick spot on the hill there at Brightbeck for the fireworks, which is fun. But bring the kids, go to Rudy's.
Oh yeah.
I was just at Bev's recently.
Oh yeah.
Had a nice huge ice cream cone. It was delicious.
Nice.
We will definitely revisit Oswego later on in our conversation. But Matt, right now in your role as at ESPN, we're halfway through 2024. Hard to believe that, but I'm sure that as in your role as a producer with ESPN Event Productions, you've already witnessed a lot of memorable events so far this year. What kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, so this will be my 25th year at ESPN, which is pretty to think about. Been full-time producing for, I don't know, a dozen years or so. But yeah, my main role is I'll produce men's college basketball from basically November to, championship week, women's tournament, and then a lot of college sports. I'll do softball, super regionals, baseball, super regionals and regionals. And then the summer's kind of laid back, but no, basketball is great. I was on the Big 12 all year. Great conference, terrible travel to get to some of these schools in the Midwest in the middle of January and February. But I'd say highlight, honestly, I got to ride the Caitlin Clark train for the first and second round. I produced the first and second round in Iowa, which is pretty cool. At the time before the regionals and the Final Four, I mean, there was 6 million people to watch a first round game. It's like never heard of before. So I did her first couple games, and then I went out to Portland and did the regionals out there with UConn and USC. So it was still pretty fun. But to get to experience like that atmosphere, it was pretty amazing. I mean, the people in that area of Iowa, it was a happening. It was an event, and it's still going strong. Look at the WNBA ratings. Now they have Indiana on every night, but people are tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark. Who knows how long that train is going to run for, but it was fun to be part of it for sure.
I mean, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are honestly, they're both neck and neck, I would say right now, rookie of the year for the WNBA, but they're both breaking records right now.
Yeah, man, they're like they're doing great. I took my kids to the Sun Fever game down at Mohegan, so they guys wanted to see Caitlin play. But no, Angel Reese is playing great. It's good for the women's game. It's a property that isn't properly monetized, I don't think. And hopefully, they'll never get to the NBA salaries or so crazy, those skyrocketing things. But if they can give them a living wage, some of these kids are making $60,000 a year, and have to go to Russia to play, to make money, to play ball in winter. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's coming around. It's coming around.
Is there anything you can compare that Iowa experience to, atmosphere wise?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Like
Romney Fieldhouse.
Yeah. Fourth quarter of the TOPNYO comes to mind. Late three by Keith Roach to break our no. I would say some baseball playoff atmospheres have been cool. When I was a PA, so I became a staff PA in 1999, and that was when I was just basically working. I would pack because each college football game would get a bin of stuff sent to site, tapes, graphics discs, banners, whatever. So I would be assigned a game a week, right? I'd edit something for the game and send this bin out, right? Get the melt back, get the melt back, and package all that up, whatever, for our crew. But then when I got a full-time staff job, my first gig was traveling with Sunday Night Baseball, and I wasn't the first one to do this. I followed in a line of people, but my main gig was to drive John Miller and Joe Morgan around.
Oh, cool.
So I would pick them up. This is pre 9/11. This is 2000. This is 99 or 2000. So I could go to the gate, go to the terminal, go to the gate, pick them up, get them in the car, right? Hotel, meetings, ballpark, all this stuff. And then my other kind of gig was I would start the game. Like every game has a red hat that kind of sits in the dugout, and they'll cue first pitch. Now with the pitch clock, they don't do that in between innings, which they used to. Now you get one to start the game. So I would cue the pitcher or the home plate umpire, whoever's taking the cue to cue first pitch of the game. And I got to be in a couple cool atmospheres, just, the Red Sox beating the A's. I don't know, this was like 2003 or something, maybe. In Oakland, clinching on a road on the road and going into their going to the dugout and helping taking a camera into the locker room and stuff like that. That kind of stuff was, pretty awesome. I've worked not as a producer so much, but when I was an associate producer doing graphics, I was part of, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 Duke Carolina games. Hansborough as a freshman beating JJ Redick as a senior in Duke was pretty crazy. A lot of fun. I've done my fair share of Syracuse games, and being a Syracuse fan, it was always cool to go to the Dome and produce games at the Dome and get to be a part of that. So, yeah, I mean, I can go back. Little League World Series, walk-off wins at the Little League World Series, not as maybe as an ISO producer doing replays, but not as just, walk-off wins like that, families and stuff going crazy, and just the emotion of these 12-year-old kids. Is really fun, especially when fathers are coaching their kids and their kid hits a big hit and you got them on the mic crying, right? Like, it's just really good content. And yeah, but so those are a few. I probably could think about 18 more, but we're under time constraints, Kevin. Come on.
So what would you say, like, you've mentioned you mentioned some of those. Like, if you had to
Yeah.
pick one thing in like your career that you witnessed that you would say, what this was probably the most memorable moment in my 24 plus years at ESPN.
All right, I just thought of one. I just thought of one as you were saying it because so ESPN, I'll just give you a quick backstory for this moment. So ESPN has the rights for the international men's basketball tournament.
Mhm.
So, domestically it's CBS, but everywhere else it's on ESPN. Now when in the first few rounds, they send a camera, they're taking a feed, right? It's just, it's kind of hodgepodge. But for the Final Four, we would send a truck and we would do a pretty full production. We would take CBS's cameras and I'd have access to their cameras so we could do our own replay sequences. We know nobody that cares that we know was watching, but I was there for Chris Jenkins' game winner and for Villanova and was on the floor for one shining moment. It was because we could always run to the floor quickly. We were off the air before one shining moment. So I did like 3 years in a row. 1 year when Syracuse won, they got trounced by Michigan, maybe. Who did they lose to that year? Anyway,
Carolina,
but
maybe?
I was there when Carolina won, and then when Chris Jenkins hit that shot. It's pretty. I mean, to be down there for one shining moment, and being part of something like that was really, really pretty special.
So, Matt, in your role at ESPN, take us behind the scenes. So, what kind of things do you do in advance of game day and maybe on game day?
Yeah, so let's just say I have a game assigned on a Saturday afternoon, right?
Mhm.
So it's Syracuse Duke. Okay. Basically what I would do is there's usually a team with me, right? So there's a director, an AP or a graphics producer, and an AD, an associate director, who kind of would, if you're on a crew, we kind of travel together from game to game, week to week. So would put them all in an email with the sports information directors at both those schools, explain to them, that I'm producing the game on the weekend. These days I got to tell them what model it is. So I'm like, sometimes it's like, well, this is going to be produced in Bristol, but the announcers will be on site, or everyone's on site, or we're in the control room at Syracuse and the announcers will be at home. Like there's just so many different things that you just got to let them know just so they kind of know. I mean, they don't really care, but I think it's just good information. And I just lay out the matchup, tip times, and then I kind of lay out some directions for them. I ask them for game notes when they're ready, what time are shoot arounds the day before. And we're into making good content. These schools have been so cool now because they make so much of their own content that that only makes air on Twitter or wherever, or their website. So we asked them for stuff. Hey, do you have any fun stories, any features you guys produced that we could steal? Stories we could tell about the players, anything. We're always into digging for more stuff to tell stories during the game. So that's kind of like the beginning of my week would be. I'd have a production assistant assigned to the game who would be in charge of. Well, we don't send bins anymore because there's no tapes anymore. So kind of tell them what content has to go where. Some schools, we work in their control rooms, and there's a thing called Media Bank that all the content from Bristol can get pushed to. They download it there right onto their the replay machines, mostly in the schools, are called dream catchers. So they can upload right onto those machines. So kind of working with the PA to make sure we have all the content we need, tape packages, evergreen tape packages for the week. What needs to go to site, basically. Work with the announcers during the week on kind of storylines. It's usually a travel. So travel out Friday, maybe have dinner with the announcers or go to shoot arounds, depending on the schedule. And depending on the format of the game, whether it's a Remy or a control room, whatever, say call time 6 hours before the games. So 7:00 game, we're in at 1:00. And my job during the game, basically, I call myself the navigator of the ship, basically. So, if I'm looking at where all the monitors are in a truck, and if I'm going left to right, the associate director sitting to my left, they're the ones counting the breaks, making sure we get all our sales elements in, all our promos in, all the money stuff, important things. then me, director, and then the technical director, the guys cutting the camera. So I would, I call all the replays during the game. So, the replay guys might be in another room if we're in a control room or in a truck. They're just, they're in the back of the truck. So just communicating on headsets on best looks. I will prepare probably, there's what, 4, 16, 8, 12, and 4. So there's 4 commercial breaks in each half. So I'll usually plan to do something out of 2 of those breaks, content-wise, a story about a team, trend, national, whatever we think is best, and kind of plan those there, but are ready to react if a story pops up. If Kevin Mooney goes off for 14 straight points, well, that's the package we're doing on a break. We're blowing off the national storylines, right? So just making kind of those decisions, working with the director just on flow, just on, who are the announcers talking about, right? That's a director's best friend. That's how they know. That's how they know what cameras to cut, because the camera guys are listening to the announcers as well. So just trying to keep that ship afloat, right? And making sure we're getting the stories we need to tell. Also by documenting the game, right? That's the most important thing. Not miss anything. And, making sure we get all our obligations in. So again, navigating the ship down the river, dock it, 000s, we go home.
You mentioned the 4 commercial breaks for each half. Who do we need to talk to cut that down like half? It's too many.
So there's this league called the NFL. They command a lot of money. No, I'm with you. I think I during the conference season, I agree with you guys. I think the commercials are a little bit out of control. 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, tell the leagues to lower their rights fees, and then the commercial breaks will reduce. No, really, it's one thing, and I will say this: if there's a commercial pod, we can check back with Master Control in Bristol. If there are commercials that aren't sold, which meaning do they have a 20-second ESPN promo stuck in there, we can reduce that and come out and do content, early. But yeah, I'm with you. The games are long, and I've been saying it for years. They've been putting these games in 2-hour windows, and it just doesn't happen anymore. On Saturdays, it's a mess because say on a college basketball Saturday, there could be 6 games back to back on ESPN, right? None of those games will start on ESPN because these games go over 2 hours. So it's like, all right, I'm going to news. Where am I going? It's on the app. It's this. It's there. And I get it, trying to get all the bang for the buck, but it's for the viewer. I completely can see how it can be frustrating.
College football is even worse because then there's replay. There's a challenge flag, and then there's oh god, it's terrible.
The review process in college basketball, football. I only dealt with it. I only dealt with it a couple times because I only did it as an ISO producer. I'll tell you one funny story. So I was filling in on ISO producer as an ISO producer for. It's our Saturday prime game, but it was like opening week. It was Penn State LSU in Atlanta, and literally I ISO produced for 1 year. So basically, you're selling all the replays to the producer.
So if I can, sorry, Matt. So ISO producer, what does that mean exactly?
So ISO producer, kind of, it's the same as a replay producer. So football, you call it ISO producing because you have more cameras, you can act as a producer. There, you usually get control of 2 cameras yourself. So if you're Kevin, if you're a middle linebacker and we don't have a camera parked on you, but you make 2 great stops, I can get on the camera channel and say, hey, I usually it's our pit camera that kind of shoots the line, right? I'm like, hey, go to, if you're 50, hey, go to 54 blue off, instead of 43. So then, moves the isolation cameras around basically.
Gotcha.
But really you're kind of more involved with the replay sequencing in football. But real quick. So I'm on this game. I only produced for 1 year, replay produced for 1 year. And my producer, you dealt with the replay phone the whole year. I never dealt with it. So the producer, Bill Bonnell, who produces the college football playoff championship, looks at me and goes, I don't deal with the replay phone. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, how hard can it be? I'm like, all right, we're gonna kick off. I'm gonna have plenty of time to get my feet wet. And, yeah, this is gonna be great. Opening kickoff, ball comes out, guys are diving for it, phone rings, and I'm trying to go through a replay sequence like for my first time. And it was just, one of those things in TV, like you never know until you're thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
You're in Bristol, like what, 4 days a week, 5 days a week before you travel?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, as event producers, people in event production are pretty lucky, I would say, because we don't have a show to prep, right? Like a Sports Center or Baseball Tonight or whatever. We're pretty loose in terms of being in the office, so I can work from home a lot. But yes, to answer your question, yeah, it's usually 2, 3, 4 days. Now during Big 12, I was doing 2 games a week, so I would do a Tuesday game, fly home Wednesday, do a Thursday game, fly home, or it was a Thursday, Sunday, or a Thursday, Monday. I think I did 40 basketball games this year, which is the most I've ever done.
Wow.
But it was a lot of two games a week, which makes it a bigger challenge, right? You got 4 teams to prep as opposed to 2, with less time in between. So it's just trying to stay ahead, right? Like if I know I'm doing 6 games in 3 weeks, like I'll look ahead, right? Reach out early, get the communication out early for the teams and the SIDs, so not to get behind.
Is there other remote PAs still in the same area as the studio PAs in that like small little area that they used to be in back in the day, or are they?
So Jay, it's weirdly, you'd be completely weirded out by the situation that we have on campus. So Building 3, where event was, got completely renovated, but they didn't put event production back in there. They gave it to like talent and some other people, but it's beautiful. So they moved the producers to Building 0, which is that building that was right next to the gym. Used to be like ESPN magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So our desks are in that building. And I'll tell you why I don't go to work, and I'll tell you the PA thing too. I am in the same size cubicle. So we had bigger desks when we were in Building 3. But then when they moved us all, now I'm in the same size cubicle as when I was a 24-year-old temp PA. With less room because I don't even have the overhead space, Jay. Like there's no basement anymore.
Right.
So that's why we tend to work at home. But PAs, a lot of them are remote, bro. Like a lot of them,
Oh yeah.
I mean, all this stuff's non-linear now, so they're all on their laptops. They can edit. They can rough cut and edit for a editor. We do so much stuff remotely now. Like I do, produce games on campus where I'm in a room and the graphics person's 2 buildings away. Their operator's in a different building, and it's just it's just organized chaos at some points. But
they don't have to run to the screen and go, I need that tape. Give me that tape.
They're not popping the deuce anymore. They're not popping the deuce. No, yeah, it's all digital. It's crazy.
So what did the job you do, what did that look like 25 years ago versus today, logistically speaking? You said bins, so I assume you would just send a bin full of tapes all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, these, Jay can tell you, these 90-minute digital betas and analog tapes are, this big, and you send 2 cases of them, everything was on tape, right? All the cameras, now that they all go to an EVS machine and it's all digital and everything goes to a hard drive, everything was recorded on tape. And where that got interesting, where now everything's always recording, right? So if I'm on a replay machine and I cue something to do a replay and another thing happens on that same camera, any machine can go grab it. You know what I'm saying? So where before, if you stop recording to cue a replay, you're not recording that camera anymore, right? So you got to make really interesting decisions on replays. I would say it's changed. I think people's attitudes have changed, honestly. I mean, not to demean what we do now, because I think we do more content than the old school guys ever did. But that's based on programming and rights. But I just think that the guys who are on my level were taught the right way and how not to act. I think producers in the 80s and early 90s, and really until I came, had a real entitlement problem. But that was partly because that's how some of the sports treated them. I mean, Monday Night Football, those guys flew around in a private jet, the producer's director, every week, in the 80s, and money was no object. The limos from the airport, limos to dinner, unlimited expenses, and some of these guys made a lot of money. But with that, their attitudes towards, there was no teaching, right? It was like, just do this, do that, do this, do that. There wasn't a lot of bringing up, right? Like, hey, this is the right way to do it. This is what you should do in this situation here or there. We just kind of learned by fire, like by osmosis, by watching and saying, okay, that doesn't work because screaming at people doesn't get you anywhere. So the level of entitlement has definitely come back to earth, and it's a completely different age, man. It's just a completely different day.
So here's your old school beta tape.
Yes.
Right.
Look at
that
that
we used to use. This thing is humongous.
Yeah.
It's my old reel that I had when I was at ESPN, and basically I was in studio production, right, and Matt would have been in remote production. So what would have happened is we would have had basically two separate decks going, one with a white label on it, which was not touched, couldn't touch it, couldn't pop it out unless it ran out of space, and then one with the green label on it. The green label was called a deuce. Every time some crazy play would happen, some guy from remote production would just come screaming in, I need that tape, right in the middle as you're trying to write things down and do all this stuff. You'd have to pop a tape, pop a new one in, make sure you had it all written out, know when the tape started. It was crazy. And like, these things are humongous. So you're like trying to grab them and like shove them into the machine at the same time. And like, yeah.
Well, it was always like, it was always like a rat chasing cheese. Like you go, hey, you got that Thomason touchdown? Oh, I already popped it and gave it to blah, blah, blah. They're an edit W. Okay, go to edit W. Oh no, I gave that tape, blah, blah, blah here. All right. You're looking the tapes, there'd be massive amounts of tapes in this room during college football Saturdays. And yeah, Jay's right. It was a mad scramble.
Hence the term "pop the deuce," right?
Pretty much.
Be a good T-shirt, Jay.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Throwing Bagels should set up a shopping cart.
That's right.
I'm sure they have. I'm sure someone in studio production or something like that has thought about that over the years.
Oh yeah, I mean, the amount of, I know people have written books, but I'm sure there's lots of stories still out there, man.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you've so like we said, you've been there for quite a while at ESPN. You've worked, or two of the most famous Oswego alumni are work at ESPN, and they've worked there for quite longer than you've been around.
Yeah.
And Steve Levy and Linda Cohn. How often have you been? Have you crossed paths with them? I know Steve Levy does more. He's started doing a lot more, games than he used to do before he was doing in the studio, and Linda's still mainly in the studio. But how often do you cross paths with them at all?
I don't really. Steve is mainly a hockey guy, right? Like he was doing Monday Night Football, and then all that stuff kind of went on. But so he's mainly hockey. Linda is out in LA, right? She does the LA Sports Center. I honestly, I'll tell you, the last time I talked to either of them, the last time I talked to Linda, I sent her an email after Oswego State won the men's hockey title and said, "Go Lakers." And we had like just a quick back and forth. And then the last time I talked to Levy was on campus in Oswego when I was a student. He was there, and we were taping, like, we wanted him to do like quick, funny little promos for a bunch of different, a bunch of different shows. And we wrote a couple scripts, and it was like really something nasty, right? Like nothing vulgar, but just like, get ready for after further review. Why would you want to watch this piece of crap? So I handed him a card. He's like, "You really want me to say this?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, he's always been nice. I definitely a couple emails here and there through the years, but honestly, the studio and remote talent you rarely cross paths because you don't produce a lot of studio shows.
Mhm.
But it's good to see, man. Like like you said, Jay, they kind of set the standard and kind of carry the flag. So it's pretty cool.
So how did you land your first gig at ESPN? Was that right out of college?
Kind of. So I graduated in December of '98, actually, and then I walked in May of '99 with like all buddies like Chris Watson and all those guys. We all kind of walked together because we thought it would be fun. So I interned at IXT.
All right, Channel 9.
Yep, for Jack Morse and Doug Logan, which was funny. I know you guys are all familiar with Doug Logan's voice and his TV and radio call. And I remember I applied for the internship and I was living on 3rd Street with, a couple of people, and like on our answer machines, Doug Logan leaving like a 30-second voicemail, Matt, Doug Logan, want to see you in 2 weeks, whatever. So I interned there, did my internship there for credit. And then when I graduated, I had nothing, honestly. I had applied for the sports shooter job was open at WIXT. So I applied for that. Didn't have a ton of experience shooting, kind of showed them what I shot in college. And, they loved me because I'd worked there and they thought I did a good job. And they're like, you don't have really any experience and we really need someone that can kind of step in and start shooting stuff like right away. I'm like, okay. So then they ended up hiring me 1 day a week to help produce the Friday night high school football show, right? It was like an
Friday
hour
Night
show.
Fever.
Friday Night Fever, right?
Yes.
I would take the tapes in from the shooters from the games, cut the highlights, write a little script, write the script or just the bullet point action. And that was with Dave Donovan. So Dave Donovan ended up becoming the sports anchor, right? Jack retired, Doug went wherever he went, and then he took over and he told me, I was working there for the whole fall or half the fall, and he goes, "Hey, if you ever want to try ESPN, my buddy is an associate producer there, and he might be able to help you, get an interview, do whatever." So got in touch with him, and he put me in touch with Billy Graff. Remember Billy, right, Jay?
Who was it?
Billy Graff?
No, I interviewed with Al Jaffe.
Okay. So, Billy wasn't in charge. You were gone after he ended up taking over Raps unit. So you were gone already. So I bugged him. I couldn't get him on the phone, bugged him for like 2 weeks. And he finally took my phone call and he goes, "Okay, I'm going to give you a test. You might, Jay, you might kind of think this is familiar. I got like a 4-question sports knowledge test." And he goes, "Okay, cool. Can you start in 2 weeks?" I go, never been to Bristol, don't have a house, don't have a place to live, don't have anything. So the week before I started, I drove with my dad to Bristol. We toured ESPN, found some really crappy place in Bristol to live. Dude, it was pathetic. It was like this first floor of a multifamily home apartment. They turned into apartments, and you had to walk through my bedroom to get to the bathroom and kitchen. Yeah, it was really strange. And it was gross. But so I started in October of '99. And it was $9 an hour, no benefits. You started as a temp, Jay? Were you a temp as well?
I started a temp, yep.
Yeah, so temp, no insurance, no nothing. And they can either choose to extend you after your 6 months is up, or if there's a staff job, you apply and you get it. If not, if they like you, they'll extend you. Basically, if they liked you, they'd keep you around until a staff job would open. And I think I ended up getting one maybe 6 months later or something like that. But yeah, it was pretty weird. So yeah, basically, honestly, it's my first real job out of college.
Yep. I think it was $8.61 an hour when I first started there.
I might have been $8 an hour.
Yeah, it was $8.61 an hour. I lived in Emmett Street Apartments.
Yeah.
And I worked like, I don't know, 50 hours a week, maybe, probably more than that. Cause having to
you had to work overtime or you'd be in the poorhouse.
Yeah. And eventually they started to cut back on overtime. They were like, I would work like 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. That was my shift because that's when all the sports was taking place. And like, we would be like, oh, what do you want me to do? I have to like do all this stuff, whatever. And eventually they were like, no, you can't work overtime or whatever. But every once in a while, if you could like finagle it every so often, but you couldn't do it like every day, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, it was like $8.61 an hour. And surprisingly enough, you could live off that there in that area. You could
Yeah.
actually live on it. It was crazy. That's how
You're right.
like rent was dirt cheap.
Yeah, you're right. Now you couldn't even dream of it. It's
No.
crazy. You're
I
right.
can't even imagine what they pay the I mean, I feel like they have to probably pay them close to minimum wage now, the temps, right?
Well, so they don't do that anymore, Jay. They have a program now where they basically there's a it's called the Next program. And basically there's a group that recruits people, right, to come in as PAs. And you're basically once you enter in as and you start as a content associate now, you're not a production assistant. That's the next level. So you start at a content associate level on that side and event too. And basically you have 2 years to move up to production assistant. If you don't move up in 2 years, you're done. And then once you get to production assistant, there's some in-grade promotions there, but then I think you have 5 years to get to AP, associate producer. And I don't think there's a cap on to get producer, but to move up, that's kind of what they do now.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I
no
don't know.
talent. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know how hard it is to move up doing that stuff now, but like that sounds way better than having a 6 month job and hope that you get kept. You know that enough people like you to keep you around, or otherwise you're out on the street after that. So that sounds like a better gig then, honestly, than the temp PAs.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're running into now is that you don't get put on just studio. You might do studio for 3 weeks, and then you'll come over and do event for 3 weeks, and then you might go back and forth. So it's kind of a lot of people are having trouble finding their footing on what they really want to do, right? Because they're not getting much consistency there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, if you want to start at ESPN, you better be ready to sit around. You might not produce something for, dude, I don't know, 15 years, 18
Yeah,
years.
most people I know that were there, they didn't took them a long time to become. I mean, just becoming an AP took at least like 6 years, probably.
Yeah.
To then move up to producer was like a good 10 years at least.
Yeah, it's a huge log jam. I mean, because there's never any extra head count, so it's just hurry up and wait.
So, what led you to your interest in broadcasting, and what led you to attend Oswego? I mean, obviously, Oswego High School had the program.
Right.
Did you want to stay home? Were you looking to go away?
Well, you kind of hit it on the head. I mean, doing WBUC and Oswego High School is what really gave me the ambition to want to work in television. You got to work, kind of like what you did when you were at TOP and NYO. You're a freshman, you walk in, you're doing everything, right? You're working every job. We do the same thing at high school. I helped the guy who kind of ran the program, Chris Watson, and him helped build like the first remote box. So we took this, basically made a remote box, and then we could take cameras and shoot like Oswego softball, sectionals, and we'd call them. But when it came time for college, Oswego was just the right choice. I mean, I wasn't a great student, but not a bad student. I mean, Syracuse would have been an option, but it was just so darn expensive. It just, and honestly, looking back on it, I wouldn't have done anything different. I mean, to get the experience you get, at Oswego, where those guys are waiting until they're juniors at Syracuse. Now, granted, the it's quite a fraternity over there at Syracuse, so the opportunities pop up probably a little more than an Oswego alum. But I think you get your chops more at Oswego, and you make yourself a little more valuable in the job market. But yeah. Oswego was definitely the only choice. It was nice to be home and make friends in college, have, local friends, and it was a comfortable place. And, working in the media there was a lot of fun. I honestly wish I probably put more into it than I did. especially down the stretch of Oswego, my last couple of years. But it's a great, it was a great experience. And now, I mean, I haven't even, the stuff they do now is amazing.
Yeah.
The hockey games they do now, and all the, they've got, great equipment. A lot has changed.
Crazy
No
compared to what we had.
doubt. Oh man, no doubt.
But we've built, honestly, Oswego's built up quite the program, like still not, obviously it's not Syracuse. It'll never be Syracuse because of the length, the amount of time Syracuse has been around versus, Oswego's
Sure.
program. Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've grown, we have a program that like can really give people, young people now the opportunities that we might not have had when we were graduating, because there wasn't as many people in the business yet,
Oh, dude, no doubt. I mean, just the marketability that you can make yourself with the things you can create now at Oswego, we could never do that. Like making the tapes we made were, prehistoric in terms of resume tapes and this and that. I mean, and it does get you ready. One of my kind of post-work dreams is, so real quick. So I've done a lot of games in the Syracuse control room, and ESPN hires a operations producer at every of these all these control rooms. Basically, it's a staff person they bring in, or a person they bring in to kind of make sure no big fires get set, right? Like if anything, really they're just there for safety. And the guy that works a lot in the Syracuse control room is a professor at Oswego, and I can't remember his name. But I told him, like, what you need are TV or sports production classes. Like I'm sure there's something in that realm, but like, there's so many old trucks and stuff like that. Like get an old TV truck, fire it up, get the kids in there, learning. You can go through scenarios. You can go, you can really kind of teach people how to work in any of the control rooms by giving them that experience. But because when you go to a network, whether it be ESPN, Fox, MLB network, wherever, the process is still the same to produce live events, right? Like the theory behind it and the tentacles are all kind of the same, right? There might be different images to these things because it's different sports, but like the process is all the same. And if you can get that process going when you're 19, like the schools, like the SEC and ACC schools that have control rooms, those kids have a huge leg up. I mean, you know how many TDs we've brought in from school control rooms? I mean, they'll direct, they'll TD, they'll technical direct, they'll do Remy games in Bristol and studio shows, but like they're plucking people from those places because they're getting ESPN experience on ESPN shows. You got kids running cameras doing big time college basketball games,
right?
Running camera. Now they're not all students. A lot of the rooms hire freelance people, and it's maybe partialed out with some students, but there's some talented kids out there, and they're definitely getting a huge leg up in the industry if they want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So besides WTOP, did you do any other media organizations? NYO, the Oswegonian?
Not no Oswegonian. Did NYO for a while. Had radio shows on and off. Me and Jay Wertheimer had a show. I had a couple just regular radio gigs Saturday mornings. Probably hungover, didn't show up to a couple of them. Kevin, were you director then? Yeah, man. But no, I really enjoy doing it all. The radio side is fun. I will tell you, I think I can't be arrested anymore, right? For, stealing, but like, I'm a huge Dave Matthews Band and Pearl Jam fan.
Nice.
And when, they got sent, NYO got sent the Yield CD, and I totally ripped that off and brought it home with me. And Dave Matthews was coming out with their second album, but they put out a single for "Don't Drink the Water," and that was a single in the radio room for a while. And I totally took that home with me too.
We won't tell.
Yeah, okay.
No.
But honestly, I got to appreciate a lot of different music by just playing stuff off the playlist or just honestly hunting and pecking around on the wall, right, for CDs and just finding what worked. And you hear stuff that you normally wouldn't hear. So it was definitely a good experience.
I think 98, 99, I was sports director at NYO. Weren't you new sports director at TOP?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we lined up against each other for the Golden Pitcher that year. And I want to say that we won, but NYO won, but I think the Golden Pitcher mysteriously disappeared.
For basketball?
Was it basket? Because we know we had football, we had like flag football, softball. There was basketball in there too.
Yeah. No, I'm sure flag football and softball went different ways, but I think I only played like 2 of the basketball games. But listen, neither team are any good. But we could just make more shots than you about it. No, it was and when going back to like wishing I did more, like you're talking about being the sports director. I don't think, even looking back now that long ago, I can still remember I should have done more than what I did, just in terms of being active, coming up with ideas for the for the department, that type of thing, really making an impact. But when you're 19, when you're 21 years old, it's a different story. You look back on it now and you're like, man, I could have done more. But no, it was just an awesome place and an awesome time, honestly.
Well, before we get you out of here, we usually ask our alum a couple of questions about food because we love food around here too.
Yeah.
Is there any joints off campus that you enjoyed going to eat? Were there any places you really loved going to?
So when I moved to Oswego in 1988, I was 13, and that summer before my 7th grade year, maybe it was before my 8th grade year, my dad's like, "You're not sitting around all summer." I go, "Okay." So he was the principal of Minetto, so he went to like people around the school. Was like, "Hey, I got to get my son a job. What can I do?" And the janitor was like, the janitor was I forget the first name. I'm going to say the wrong name, but the last name's Todd. It was Richard Todd. And he goes, "Yeah, my uncle or his nephew, whatever, works at Rudy's." He goes, we'll see if we can get you a job there. So I went down, 13 years old. I was a stock boy, and I worked there until I left for ESPN.
Wow.
And still, even after still working for ESPN, I mean, I know the family really well. And there would be times where we'd be up for like 2 weeks, and I'd call him. I'm like, "Hey, I want to come cook for like 4 days this week." It's like, "All right, come for dinner, blah, 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 blah." He paid me in cash. I mean, it's just a great family restaurant. I love that place. They treated me and my family awesome. I love the food. Trying to think of the best food other than that I really sub shop, right? I mean, is there pizza places? What do you guys feel for pizza in Oswego?
I don't really like much of it.
Yeah. It wasn't great.
There wasn't many options.
I mean, at 3 a.m, does anything really taste bad?
That's true.
Honestly, I would just get like a Dominator at Domino's, and then like those huge boards of pizza. That's what we would buy. It was $10 for like, cut into like little square slices.
Yeah, I mean, wings weren't bad at a couple. Were good wings. There was a couple good spots for wings.
See, now my wing place, it's in Fulton, which is about 10 miles south of Oswego. Chubby's.
Oh yeah,
they had phenomenal wings.
Chubby's was good. Yeah, no, Chubby's was a good spot.
I mean, Vona's and Canales are good.
Vona's Canal is good. What's the place across the river on
Garofalo's?
No, right on East First, right on the river. It's attached to the hotel.
Captain's quarters or press box.
Press box.
Is it press box?
Yeah.
Well, they were
it's right across the street from the hotel.
Yeah. They're pretty good. Good diner food. Wade's Diner, good.
Yeah, Wade's is good.
Yep. There's a couple of places there, man. Like I go up there now, and the big deal was, you guys are gonna laugh, Texas Roadhouse. in Oswego.
Yeah.
Big time. Big
That's
time.
what we've heard. We've heard
is.
Texas Roadhouse showed up there and everyone was loving it.
Listen, I live in Cortland and we don't have one of those. I would love one of
Wow.
those.
Dude, you know when Kevin, when I was a kid, is that putt place? Is the A&W place still around in
Oh
Cortland?
yeah,
Sure is.
love that place.
When I was a kid, my grandfather, when I lived in Tully, when my grandfather used to visit from Florida, that's all we would do. He would drive me down to Cortland. We'd go play putt, have a foot long and a float, and that was the best. Oh my God.
Can't beat it.
Now,
It's
did
an
you
A&W root beer shop?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
It's
Wow, I
actually
didn't think those still existed.
No.
Still.
So they're actually all over Canada as well, actually.
Really?
Really?
Yes. Yes, they are.
We had one on Staten Island back when I was a kid, and they closed down long time ago. But that was I never realized it.
Yeah, that was great. That was always a great memory. My daughter's 12th birthday is tomorrow, and I'm taking her to play putt. So spin the story forward.
So did you also eat at the dining hall while you're on campus with
Yeah.
all the Hewitt Union? I'm sure you were there quite a bit.
Yeah. I did the food plan, I think the first year.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't really remember if the food was good or bad. I do remember I ate way too much. They talk about the freshman 20. I don't know.
Yeah.
But because it was like unlimited meals.
Right.
Yes.
Unlimited food. I'm like, okay, like I can go here, get a couple. No, you're not thinking like, oh, let me go get some salmon and a salad and like, oh, 2 cheeseburgers, chicken fingers, fries. Yeah, and then Rudy's was pretty cool because it was considered a seasonal employment. So when I was in college, I would technically get laid off from Rudy's. So I collected unemployment for my final 3 years in college. I just had to show that I put in 3 job applications, and they would give me $150 a week. It was fantastic.
Wow.
It was
What a coup.
it was a great career, no question.
Way to beat the system.
Yep. Hey, is what it is there. But no, I always took advantage of that. But in Rudy's too, I freaking plow my way through that place. I mean, there's just so much to eat.
We could have had for all this time. We could have walked over there and maybe you could have snuck us out a couple of fillets.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we missed out on this.
Oh, I was the king of Rudy's used to, they don't do it anymore because of COVID. They have a different way they do the orders. But I don't remember, do you remember going to Rudy's and you see all the stacks of the plates with the orders on them?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So on a Friday night, there might be 3 of those and it's 40, 30 orders deep in each pile. And when I got more experienced, I'd kind of be the one at that point spot where the plates were and telling the fish guy how much fish we needed, separating the orders for the grill guy that just had grill orders, moving the food down the line, right? But when my friends came in, they put in an order and come in and they call out the order. There'd be 3 lines deep, everyone's screaming. And my friend would come in, they put the plate down, I put it right on top, ship them out. Everyone.
Those are transferable skills that you are now applying at ESPN because you got spin a lot of plates, right? At Rudy's and at ESPN now.
Hey man, I tell you what, it definitely made you I learned how to multitask very early in life. I will tell you that based on that job. And the owners were Massachusetts. They were not joking around. They were there to make money. So they let you know.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for being with us. This was fantastic. We greatly appreciate it, and we wish you all the best at ESPN and in life. So, thank you again.
No problem. I'm sure I'll talk to you guys around the corner here soon. I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun. You guys are love the questions and love talking. Anytime you want to talk Central New York, I'm happy to jump on. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And that was producer with ESPN Event Productions and fellow SUNY Oswego grad, Matt Bartley, on the Throwing Bagels podcast. Always good to talk to Matt and get a little reminisce about the good old times.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to just chat about what used to happen, what we used to do. And, it was good to hear, about things that he's done at ESPN, and I was there for a short time, so I'm able to kind of understand a little bit more what was going on there, and the way things used to be there compared to how they are now.
I think people will find it funny how big those beta tapes are. Those things are just ridiculous.
And the bottom line is, for the person sitting on their recliner watching ESPN, they're taking an awful lot for granted.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there is so much that happens behind that camera that it's amazing, really, how they manage to the prep work that's done in advance and then executing on game day. It's so much stuff, and the fact that they make it look flawless 99.9% of the time is really phenomenal.
That's really the most impressive part of it too, is you don't really, even for myself that have seen it and like have done it and like that sort of thing, like you do take it for granted, because it's like, man, that replay came up, boom, just like that. And it's like, holy cow, how did they do that? I was like, oh yeah, I know how they did it, but I was like, they did it in like lightning fast. And it's like, whoa, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. Like, to me, I'm still fascinated by that.
It was funny talking to Matt about all the NYO TOP conflicts, clashes in athletics. Because I remember a couple of softball games, a couple of basketball games, at least one football game that NYO would play TOP, and so the winner of that game would get the golden pitcher, and we would get passed around. But it was a lot of great times.
Did it get passed around after every game, or was it just like at the end of the year? I don't remember. I don't remember if it was like
that's a good question.
Like a group, like after who won the most in that year. You know what I mean? Because I don't remember constantly changing hands after each sporting event. I mean, I remember playing softball one year, and it was just I remember the softball field at Brightbeck Park was just pure mud. And I remember running the bases, and I slipped and basically slid into not even into the base, because I was going the other direction.
That's funny. The softball games that we played were right behind Sweatman there.
Yeah. I say that we have to challenge the current students. Now we have to do a TOP. We could join forces, TOP and NYO alumni. And then we can take the best of the best, and then we take
crush them. We would crush them.
Oh, I would totally play in this game.
Absolutely, we will. I don't care if I tear a knee. We will crush them.
I know, right? My wife will kill me, but I'll tear an Achilles in this game.
Right. So, what sport are we doing?
It's got to be flag football, right?
Okay, flag football. We'll bring it up with the GMs of TOP and NYO.
That's right.
We'll say, listen, a bunch of us alumni, we're coming down.
We got to recruit, though. We got to see how many people we can get for this.
Okay.
We can get Dom coming out from North Dakota.
We would have to do this
easily,
like the calm dinner weekend or something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For another year, because we're not going to do it again this year. It's probably going to be next year.
All right.
Joe Urine. Brian Drake would absolutely play.
Oh yeah.
Dan Mount, he would play.
Yes, I think we got a team here.
I think we're building something.
All right, if you want to play on our NYO TOP alumni flag football team, give us an email. All right, Throwing Bagels Podcast at gmail.com, or you can find us online wherever. Just send us something. Let us know. We got plenty of time to plan this out.
Hell, we can try to recruit some people who just graduated. They're alumni.
They're alumni. They are alumni.
They are alumni.
Hey, listen, anything's possible.
I think we're off to a good start here. I volunteer Matt Bartley to join us on this NYO TOP alumni team.
He would do it. I think he would do it.
I think he would do. I think so. So Matt, if you're still listening, I know you are. We want you to join us on our football team. So let's get a roster together, guys. Maybe by our next podcast, whenever that is, a couple of weeks, right?
We'll get this going.
We'll start recruiting. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Got a blog coming up next week. My turn. Email us anytime. You can visit us on the web, throwingbagels.com. That's where you can find us. And our socials are all there. And YouTube as well. Like and subscribe. That's it. Bye.
Adios.
Peace out.